After so many decades of advising students on what was best for them, whether it was a graduate program, an undergrad, even doctoral programs, there's certain things that everybody needs to look at. And while we will focus on instructional design, you need to look at this from the perspective of anybody thinking about a graduate level degree or a certificate or participation at any level. And whether it's instructional design or whether it's one of thousands of other content areas that you might be thinking about for grad school, these things apply. And while we will focus specifically on instructional design kinds of things, the general 6 areas that we talk about are all pretty much the same across the board. Mm-hmm. And certainly as we look at these 6, this is not the most inclusive list that we could have, because the show will be less than 30 minutes instead of 30 hours, because if we put everything in here that you might want to think about, it would be in great deal. What we're going to try to hit is the 6 big things to consider when choosing a graduate program. So as we look at this, and I want you to put yourself in a position, and sometimes you just get to the very basic questions of, do I even want to get into a graduate program? I may already have a graduate degree. I may have a terminal degree, PhD, ED, or whatever. And why would I possibly want to do something else? And what I found over the years is there are a lot of people with terminal degrees. There are a lot of people with master's degrees that want another master's, especially in instructional design, or they want a certificate in instructional design, because that adds something to their portfolio of things that they can present and different things that they can do. And like a lot of subject matter experts, what you find is they are certainly beyond prepared and qualified in their field. When it comes to instructional design, sometimes they want that little bit of paper to show, I can do both these things. I can be a great subject matter expert and a great designer. So as we go through this, don't just think this is for people that don't have graduate degrees. These are for everybody to think about. And some will apply, some won't. We'll just have to talk about them. So the things that I would consider, Denise, are career advancement potential. So can we enhance what you already have? Total cost. There's a lot of things in costing of credit hours and degrees and certificates that people probably know at some level, but I'm going to show you some very specific things to think about. You need to look at program leadership and the faculty. Okay, who's leading this program that you're thinking about getting into, and what's that faculty look like? Are they qualified, etc.? We'll talk about those things. Course delivery options. Many programs now are online. Some are blended, some are still brick and mortar. You have to decide which is the best package for you in terms of that. Want to look at program community. Okay, what's going on in this program that you're looking at besides just the classes? What's the larger extent of this community? What else do they have to offer you as a student, as an alum, as someone who's probably thinking about employment options? And the last thing is intangibles. These are things that perhaps don't fit in one of these categories, but which we think are important for you to consider. So as we go through these, let's see what you think. If you're watching and you have some chat questions for us, let us know. If you're watching this in post, certainly put comments in there and we will answer those, as we always do. So let's start with career enhancement. You need to look at specifically what you want to have when you're done with this process, certificate, degree, what have you. What is the fit for the program that you're looking at? Is this covering the content that interests you and it's of value to you? Is it peripheral to that? These are kind of judgments that you're going to have to go through and look at and think about very seriously. And one thing that people really underestimate the value of is the name of a program. And the name of the program is what's going to be on your degree. So it's going to be a degree in X or a certificate in X. And you have to ask yourself, if you want to be in instructional design, don't you want your program to be an instructional design program by name or some derivative of that? And if you're in doubt about the name of a program and the value that it has for you vocationally, and either looking for new work or getting promoted where you're at, put the name of the program in a search engine. Put it in a job search engine and see how many positions come back. And I know if you put an instructional designer in, you're going to get just unbelievable number of hits. Some of the other things that program names are now called might not get you very many hits. And you have to ask yourself, do I want to be in competition for a position with 200 other resumes, and I want to be an instructional designer, but that's not what my degree or certificate says. So you have to think very seriously about this. And this is something I think that people think about afterwards and not when they're making this preliminary choice. So program reputation. When you look at reputation of a program, do it in the immediate past. There are people who were in a program 10, 15, 20 years ago that will tell you how great it is, and it may not even be the same program. You have to talk to people that have recently graduated or recently started in the program and see what their impressions are of what's going on. Don't go back to an alum that has no connection to the program. It hasn't for a number of years, because that information will be less than valuable to you. If you've had a program that's rebranded or has changed its name recently, I think you have to think about that. There's a reason why that happened, and you need to find out what that reason is. And I'll just leave it at that. So any other significant changes in programs? And I would ask, what's different about your program than what we had 5 years ago or 10 years ago? And just see what they say to you. And you should be able to get answers for those kind of questions. So now let's look at cost. And this is something that really sneaks up on people. And I hate to say it, but some of you will be reimbursed by an employer, or if you work at a college or university, you may be able to get free tuition up to a certain point. Then this discussion is different than some others. But the biggest thing I've seen that people catch up in is in-state and out-of-state tuition. And there's a total cost for these things. And some institutions have an incredible spread in the difference between in-state and out-of-state. And sometimes out-of-state is defined in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense, because sometimes you can be out-of-state and be in-state. So sometimes when programs are in large metropolitan areas, the Metroplex might be in 2 or 3 states, which is what we have in the D.C. area. You could be Virginia, District of Columbia, Maryland, and even stretch that to West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And you have to look and see, because there might be a Metroplex allowance for in-state, but you have to ask. That's usually through the registrar's office. So costs for a master's or PhD, costs for a certificate, fees. Sometimes fees, I can't even make sense of them, but I never could understand why online people need to pay a recreation fee, but I think that still happens in some places. So let's look at this example real quickly, and I'll give you an idea what I'm talking about. So these are 2 institutions within the same state, within the same, essentially the same programs in terms of the university. It's a university system, but 2 different parts of that system. So institution A, in-state per credit $679, out-of-state $1166. So now you're thinking, okay, so if I'm taking a 3-credit course, that's $1,461 for the course. If I'm taking 4 courses, the difference is $5,800. And for a 30-credit program, the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition is $1,410. $14,610. So that's one institution. That's their rates. That's fair. I mean, that's what they charge. Institution B, in-state's $504, out-of-state $659. So the difference is quite a bit less. The difference for in-state and out-of-state is $930 for a 6-credit course. Certificate, assuming 4 courses, the difference would be $3,720. And for a degree, the difference would be $5,580. So if you look at the 2, in-state for one is $20,370, and for the other is $18,144. Out-of-state for one is $34,980, and the other one's $23,724. So essentially $11,000 difference out-of-state. So these may or may not apply to you. I think what's important here is that you do the homework and find out what it's going to cost you. And make sure that you're comfortable, if you're considered out of state, sitting in the same online classroom with someone who's paying significantly less than you for the same course. And there are programs that it's worth it, maybe worth it to you for a lot of reasons. But what I see is people get into this and then they realize that this is going to cost them a lot more money because of their particular situation. As I said earlier, if you're getting tuition reimbursement or if you work for an institution, you will get some kind of credit for that. But this, you can't ignore this part of it. It's a lot of money, and you need to be up to speed on this. So as we look at this, look at who runs the program. Who is this individual? What kind of research background do they have? What are their publications? Have they written books? These things are important because someone who runs a program should be in high standing in the field, no matter what the field is, structural design or what have you. And the way you generally show that, even in applied programs like instructional design is often considered, you still want them to have that research background. You probably want them to have a terminal degree. You want them to show that they've published in publications. If they've written a book or two, that's not a bad thing either. And the other thing that I think is always important, and I will stress this over and over again, is do communications with directors and faculty and see how long it takes you to get a response. So send an email, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm thinking about this program, what are your recommendations or whatever, just general communication, see how long it takes to get a response and see what kind of follow-through you get. And if you get a good communication, a quick communication, a good follow-through, and you have a good conversation, then you can feel comfortable about this. If it takes a while or you don't feel comfortable with what you get back, then you have to ask yourself, I'm not even in the program, but this is what I get. What am I going to get when I'm in the program? Can I expect it to be any better? So not that this is always an issue, not that it's ever an issue, but I have seen this be a problem in the past. And I want all of you to think about this and test the waters a little bit. It's fair enough to write and email folks or call them and just see what kind of response you get. And same thing for faculty. Now, in instructional design, a lot of faculty are adjunct, and you have to look at the qualifications. Okay, what have they done in the field? Usually they always at least have a graduate degree. Maybe not a terminal degree, but certainly a graduate degree. And you want to look within a program and see what the ratio is between full-time and adjunct. And there are programs, I know one college system in California where 70% of the credit load has to be taught by full-time faculty. And I can almost assure you that in most applied programs, especially instructional design, the ratio of full-time to adjuncts is nowhere close to that. You're going to find that adjuncts will probably teach a fair amount, if not a majority of the credits. So you also want to look at their research and publications and books. So where have they worked? What do they bring to the field? What can they share with you as a student about this? Do they have jobs in the field that they've been in for a fair amount of time and they've got a lot of experience in it? These are the kind of things you want to poke around. And I would also communicate with them. I would send emails and ask questions about their courses and see what they're saying to you, see how long it takes to get an answer. And as I've advised students over the years, some of them have said to me that they never got a response from an instructor in their undergrad programs in 4 years. And sadly, sometimes graduate programs are not much better. So you need to test those waters. You spend that kind of money, you deserve to get responses and follow through. So let's think about format, because now, I mean, gosh, last couple of years has taught us that online is safe and steady. And if you can be there, that's probably a good place for most of us. Blended, you have to consider the fact that blended means you have to be on campus at some point. You can be online part of the time, but you still have to be close enough or be willing to travel to get on campus for certain things. And obviously brick and mortar, if that's what you choose, just make sure that you have the availability. Term length. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't think about either, but some schools are 15-week traditional terms, so fall, spring, maybe summer at 12 weeks. But a lot of programs are 8 weeks. I've seen some 6-week programs. So right now I teach in an 8-week program. And actually I like it. I mean, it's busy, but I like the fact that we're constantly in contact, and I feel very close to my students in an 8-week format because we all know we got to get it done and do whatever. The other thing you want to think about is there's different course loads in terms of credits for different programs. So some programs are 3-credit courses, some are 6-credit courses. You have to think about whether that matters to you. I think that's more of a mental issue in terms of that, because it all ends up the same anyway. But with the thought of a 6-credit course seemed to be more work to you than a 3-credit course, which obviously it would be, but is something that you'd find difficult for you to get around. Starting options. Now, here's something that I think is really interesting. There are programs that you can start almost every month. or every 4, 6, or 8 weeks. Some programs you only start fall or spring. It just depends on the program, and these are questions you need to ask. If you're in a hurry to get started and you can start in 3 or 4 weeks because that's the next rotation, then to me that would be much more appealing than having to wait until the next term rolls around, and who knows when that is. So just something to think about. And the last thing is learning management systems. So there's all kind of these out there. Blackboard is probably king of the hill, but there are others. And if you're used to one from your undergraduate work or other things you've done, are you willing to learn a new one? And it's something that's probably not going to be a make or break for you, but I think it's something you need to think about because there's always a ramp up time. Everything in LMS is different from one to the other. They're generally the same, but there are distinctive differences. And if it's important to you, then that's something you need to think about. So program community. To me, this intangible, I didn't put in the intangible group because I think it's too important that, but you've got to find out what's going on in this program. Is there an active alumni group? Are they supportive of students? Do they reach out? Do they provide job opportunities? Do they provide feedback, with their work? Or is there a mentoring program? Is there other things going on besides you just taking a class and moving on? Some people are perfectly happy to do that. Just do the basics, take the course, move on. But there are a lot of times when alumni can really make a difference. And you're going to find, especially in instructional design, that most of the jobs and most of the contacts you make are within a small community. So the more people you know, the more you find out about positions, the more you can use them for reputational things like recommendations. And I think any program that doesn't have an active alumni group supporting students is something that I would be concerned about. And the second thing is student engagement. So as a student, is there a newsletter in the program? Do they have events? I mean, I can remember programs that I was in that we had an event every month. There was a luncheon, there was something. Program I teach in now, there's something every week for students. There's a live session every week with a different topic and a different presenter. And these are the kind of things that build the background, that support the courses you're taking, that allow you to engage in the community. And if a program doesn't have these kind of student engagement tools, and even basics like a newsletter, why? If you don't get a newsletter at least every term, I would have to ask, why not? I mean, why don't you want to know what's going on with other students? Why wouldn't you want to know if there's new courses in the program or new faculty? If there isn't that communication, you have to ask yourself, what are they doing? And I would ask whoever you talk to, do the research, find out. What do you offer me besides the ability to take a course? And I think, Denise, you thought that the outreach part of this was really important to you.
Yes, because when you posed that question on LinkedIn, that was my response is, I really want to engage with students and alumni because I believe in networking, having a rich network. I interview a lot of students for the university that I work for, and that is the number one outcome when they talk about the satisfaction that they had. The biggest outcome is the rich network of people that they have developed in the programs that they're under. We have a whole bunch of different types of programs. And so I also agree. It's one of the reasons why I got involved in a graduate program. I want to be involved. I want to learn from people. And I don't want to sit in a silo all by myself and try to figure everything out. It's really important to have that feedback, that peer engagement, faculty engagement, all of that is really important.
And I think in a field like instructional design, I have to say that most of the jobs and most of the good things that happen come through the network. It's very rare that someone just pops into this field and is successful or moves up in this field without this body of other students that they've gone through programs with and body of alum and faculty that they've worked with. This is a very tight community. It's easy to break into, but you have to have the tools to be able to do that. So ATD, ISPI, all these other groups are important. But within your program, you need to have that community there to support you. It's not just taking classes if you want to get ahead. So intangibles, director, faculty, and support representatives. Okay, what's their responsiveness? We've already talked about this, but I think any student should test the waters and see what kind of responses they get. Enrollment pattern. Okay, I think it's fair to ask, what are the enrollments for the past 2 or 3 years? Are they up, down? Are they even? You don't probably want to get into a program that's going downhill. And one way to find that out is to see what the registration pattern is. So is this a growing program? Is this a healthy program? Or this a program that's not able to fill sections, that it just doesn't seem like it's doing as well as it could? These things are important to you, because the reputation of this program and what you get out of is going to be based on the things that are happening within it. And this is usually a pretty good barometer. The health of a program is where it is with registrations and other things. So ask, and they should be able to tell you that. Faculty level of experience in teaching. And one thing you find in applied programs, there's a lot of very talented people, but not all of them are good teachers. And one thing that I found that students have found frustrating is when they're in an instructional design program and they get into a new course and the syllabus doesn't even have objectives in it, or it's not clear how they pass the course or what they need to do. If there aren't well-written objectives or there aren't well-written evaluation requirements that allow you to know what you need to be able to reach mastery. Just kind of look and feel stuff. So if I were you and I was thinking about getting into a program, I'd ask for some syllabi. I would take a look. And I would, okay, is this a well-designed course? If this is an instructional design program, wouldn't you want it to be a well-designed course that would act as a role model for what you want to do and for what you want to design? So not saying that any of these things don't exist, but what I'm saying is you need to be checking it out.